Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Fairy Tale Courtyard, although today it's more the mythology courtyard. I'm still waiting on Erica. She is getting ready, so we'll just hang out for a second. And apologies if you hear any barking. I am dog sitting right now, so there are dogs, not in the castle, obviously. So we may get interrupted by barking. In fact, there's a dog like nosing me right now. But yeah, welcome. So this is the first time we've directly analyzed a myth. We're going back to Greek mythology, taking on, hi Miriam, taking on Eros and Psyche, also called Cupid and Psyche, although when you call it Cupid, it gets a little bit confusing because we picture like baby Cupid, but they're obviously talking about an adult man here because this is a romance story. So this one is interesting. And as I'm reading it and comparing it to these Beauty and the Beasts that we've talked about, yeah, there's a lot of similarities here that I see. So how are you guys doing? I don't want to jump in too much until Erica gets here. How's everybody doing? Did you guys get a chance to read the story? Were you familiar with it already? I've got like notes on my phone for this one because there's a lot going on. And jump in if I miss something because the odds are pretty good. But yeah, so we're just in Greek today and going for that. It was interesting finding art for this one, right? Because we go back to mythology and the culture is a little different. By that I mean like there's a lot of nudity. So it was kind of tricky, like, sorry guys. Did not take that part of like mythology into account. We're used to the fairy tales, right? Yeah, so Laura says she was not familiar with this one. Yeah, and we posted the two versions. Ooh, and Sarah read the story this morning. So yeah, we are good. So you guys can help me keep it straight. And Laura comments that she's seen Percy Jackson. I was picturing, yeah, Percy Jackson, of course, is a mythology retelling. I love that. Also, Lore Olympus, which is a webcomic, is like a mythology retelling mashup. And then they've got an Eros and Psyche in there. And so I was also kind of picturing that, which is fun because it's these like very colorful, almost like neon characters. Anybody else familiar with Lore Olympus? And then Miriam says, yeah, she got halfway through the story, but she's heard it before. Yeah, it's one of the longer ones. We've gotten really used to these. Well, some of Anderson's are long, right? But with Perrault, especially, these really brief snippets. And then these are like the events of years are happening with these Beauty and the Beasts and these mythologies. All right, I guess I'll go ahead and dive in to that recap, and then Erica can join us when she comes in. And then, yeah, Sarah makes a point, which we'll talk about as we're going through, that it's like east of the sun, west of the moon. And yeah, it absolutely, if we're gonna like really compare it to a fairy tale, I think that is the one, because you have this journey that the girl goes on, right? But to me, like I've always thought east of the sun, west of the moon is like Beauty and the Beast with this like little extra bit at the end. So I see some similarities there. But yeah, this one in particular is really, really similar to that. And yay, we have another Lore Olympus fan. I think it updated today. I read a new episode today anyway. It's getting good. This season's been good. All right, so starting out, we have, and again, I have my notes because this one's really involved, so help me keep it straight, guys. So we're in the mortal realm, right? Got to mention that because it's mythology. We have a king and a queen. They have 3 daughters. We've seen this set up before, although it's a king and queen instead of a merchant. And then the youngest is really beautiful. So beautiful, her sisters are a little jealous, and so beautiful that people kind of worship her as their goddess. They say, oh, she's more beautiful than Venus. She's better. And they're just like lavishing praise on her. She's not really doing anything other than, existing, but they're lavishing praise. This is not a great idea if you're living in Greek mythology. The gods have a tendency to get pretty jealous, right? So Venus says like, hey, to her son, I guess we'll call him Cupid. I'm not sure which one to go for there. But Cupid seems to be the more common one as I was looking up this story. So she says to her son, hey, like, go take care of this girl for me. She's you know, she's stealing my thunder, so to speak. So Cupid goes down. He's supposed to, I'm trying to remember if he's supposed to kill her. I think he's supposed to make her fall in love with something ugly is actually the thing he's supposed to do, because he's got like his arrow. And yeah, Laura mentions we have the 2 sisters in this one as opposed to like 6. I think the structure of 3 siblings works pretty well. So Cupid goes down. He's supposed to poke her with the arrow, make her fall in love with something ugly as a punishment. Instead, he kind of clumsily scratches himself with the arrow. Interesting plot twist. And so he falls in love with Psyche. And yay, here's Erica.
Someone made apologies. Hello, you look amazing.
Thank you. It's a towel, and yeah, here we go. I know, it's an official Greek toga, and yeah, we're set.
Yeah. Oh, I've got my Greek bracelet, but it actually doesn't show on the screen.
Well, I know it's tough. Collarbones up. That's kind of what shows.
yeah. I went on a hunt for my Greek jewelry, and it just doesn't seem to have been worth it. But yeah, you can see the earrings, so yay.
Yes, perfect, and welcome. So we were just doing recap. We got to the point where Cupid kind of stabs himself with his own arrow.
Yeah, I've never liked that part. But moving on.
yeah, it seems a little, I don't know, it's a little weird, and it also, I guess if everyone falls in love from Cupid's arrow, it doesn't really negate the love story part of it.
Yeah.
But also, it's very accidental. Laura raises an interesting point. So he falls in love with a beautiful person. The arrow should have made her fall in love with something ugly.
Well, the arrow only makes you fall in love. It's about what you see next is what it makes. So the idea was that they were going to put her somewhere where she could not help but fall in love with someone. She'd be surrounded by ugly, boorish brutes. Basically, she was going to walk into a room of Gastons, get stabbed with the arrow, and then she was stuck. Unfortunately, he stabs himself, and he's still looking at her, so he's stuck.
Yeah. So then he's like, oh, yeah, actually, she's quite nice. So then, let's see. And I was telling them there's like a lot that goes on here, so I've got notes because I'm trying to keep it all straight.
So he decides then that he's going to love her, but in order to get her, he kind of needs to do it on the down low because mom's going to be mad. Seeing as he was meant to kind of curse her, and instead he decides he wants to marry her. So he gets his pal, the West Wind, in on the act. And this was before they broke up over Hyacinth, which is a whole other story about Cupid, but we'll leave that out. So they dress Psyche up as if she's going to be going to a funeral rather than a wedding, because effectively she's going to be sacrificed. And they chain her to the rocks. They don't chain her, they just stand her on the rocks.
Yeah.
And the West Wind comes along, blows her off the rocks, but he carries her then to the castle in the clouds, the magical realm, where she's hears a disembodied voice saying, "Everything's fine, dear. Enjoy yourself." She's like, yeah, I got whisked off a cliff by an invisible wind, and previous to that, I said goodbye to my family because I was going to my death. I'm not sure what part of this is good. But she goes along with it.
Yeah, it's a similar setup, though, in that it's a very nice castle. Everything she needs or wants is provided.
Yeah, and then all the servants are there. So this is where it gets a little awkward.
Yes.
In that she gets led to the marriage bed and made love to by an invisible figure. Not invisible, but she's not allowed to see him.
Right, she can't see.
Okay. And later on, it's brought up this question as to whether it was a marriage bed, since they weren't really married because his mom didn't give permission. So it's just so awkward.
It's awkward, and it really depends on like which translation you read, how far they take it. Because some of them, and it's different in like different fairy tales. But yeah, so it's mythology. It's awkward.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the idea of the whole thing though was that she had consented to marry the beast.
Yes.
This is part of marriage, so but she finds that actually he says nice things to her. He's not rough with it. He's always very kind and considerate, and she's like, "Oh, okay. So well, I can't see him, but actually not that bad a guy." And she has all her beautiful jewels and has a very pleasant life, and it's all fine. She never can see her husband. Then she's getting lonely. So Cupid has a bright idea. Zeph, the West Wind, how about you bring her family up here? Because that's what every girl wants, her jealous sisters around.
The sisters have been married for quite some time, by the way. They were married before she was taken by the wind.
Yeah, but still. So the wind whips the sisters up to sea, and they suddenly go very jealous. They were kind of like sad their sister had been whisked to her death. But you know what? Now suddenly they were like, this isn't so bad. But we don't like the fact that she got one up on us because she's got the best palace of all of us. So they start to play on her fears of, wait, you've never seen your husband? Oh, that's because he's the beast. Yeah, because you remember the oracle told you that you were going to be married to a beast so fierce that even Jupiter was scared of him. And they basically then convince her that the only way that she can be safe is that she needs to go arm herself with a knife, take the torch, the lantern, look on her husband's face to assure herself that he is the monster, and then slay him immediately before he has the option, before he can stop her. And foolishly, she agrees. And so she goes, and at night time, she's there, and she takes the lantern, and suddenly she sees, oh, wait, he's the most beautiful man I have ever seen. He's amazing. And I don't know whether she strictly recognizes him as the god of love, or whether, but she knows that he's unearthly.
Yeah.
Actually, there ain't no problem here.
Yeah,
she's
like,
there with her little candle of hot wax and goes, tip, burns him, and he wakes up and goes, damn, now you've seen me. But in this version, it was that while she was staring at him, she got distracted and she scraped herself on one of his other arrows and fell into the mad passions of a kind of rapture of love. And in doing so, that's when she spilt over the oil. And that's what, but he had to run away then because, like, eek, no one was meant to know about this, not even.
I can see.
Okay. So he runs off, and she's left alone to cry bitter tears that she has lost the wonderful love of her life.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she's got. All right, so then. Sorry, I really am like having trouble keeping this whole story straight.
All right, allow me to continue.
Sorry, I like, for some reason we've gone over so many versions of like similar stories. I'm getting
well, this is part of Greek mythology, and I started reading that when I was 10, so I've had years of collecting the Greek myths and how they all fit together. So then Psyche is left, and in order to get her husband back, she goes to the temples of the gods to pray for clemency. She first goes to Demeter's temple, or Ceres, depending Roman tradition, and she notices that it's been left in kind of bad order. She goes, this isn't right. This is the temple of the gods. So she goes and she cleans the whole place up just to put things right. And then the goddess appears to her and says, wow, well, kind of good on you for being, a properly pious child who will look after the temples of the gods, but I can't really help you. There's another goddess, and kind of like, I'm not getting involved. It's like, oh, okay. She wanders along to the temple of Juno, Hera. Now, given the number of times Hera's been jilted by her husband, you'd kind of think that she'd be sympathetic. And she was. She's also like, yeah, I'm not getting into this family spat with Aphrodite because it's just not worth it. Not to mention the various versions where Eros is the son of Aphrodite and Zeus. So, yeah, well, I mean, everyone's the son of Zeus at some point or other.
Messy.
So then she finally twigs, okay, there's nothing for it. I'm going to have to go and face her. I have to go to Venus's temple, to Aphrodite herself. And she does. And Venus is like, score, that uppity little one who thought that she was as beautiful as me, who stole my honors and then like turned my son's head and injured him. Oh, I'm making her pay. And she starts setting to her some like absolutely ridiculously impossible tasks, basically just because she could.
Yeah, she's just being mean at this point. She really is.
Yeah. Now, what it isn't clear is whether, and again, that'll depend on the translation, whether it's spitefulness because you're too pretty. I want to, like Cinderella and her stepmothers. You're the pretty one. I'm going to make you look ugly by being the servant. Or whether it was righteous indignation on, my son did everything he could to make you happy. You wouldn't trust him, and you injured him in the process. Kind of like, he's a god, and you've injured him. Like, how dare you? So, depending on which version, she might be a little bit, slight bit more sympathetic, but mostly, yeah, she's just being vindictive because she can be, because she's a goddess, and they get to do things like that. So the first task is she literally throws onto the ground. So it wasn't like it was already there. No, she makes the mess of corn, maize, wheat, peas, lentils, and something else. Like literally all the little tiny, bitty, grainy stuff, and says they need to be in separate piles. By morning, go. It's just like, okay. So she sits there and cries, and of course the ants come and help her and say, we can do this. Now, again, in some versions, it wasn't in the version of Asclepi, whatever, on the Wikipedia summary, but in other versions of it, the ants are being sent by Demeter, who's goddess of the harvest, as a, can't really help you, but you were good to me, so.
Yeah, but it's also helping you. Yeah, and Laura brings up, this is featured in some versions of Cinderella, right? You've got to separate grains. We get help from the animals. I think it's birds in a lot of Cinderella versions.
Yes, it's very, very similar sort of, you can see where a lot of the later fairy tales borrowed from the classics.
Yeah, and then Sarah brings up another one.
Vasilisa,
getting that.
Vasilisa, who's kind of the Russian counterpoint to a lot of the same Greek tales and Slavic tales. So it's interesting actually how many of them have their origins, but like different places that may or may not have had a huge amount of trade and contact at given times, but they all seem to have their own versions of stories. It's like either there was much more contact and trade than we thought there was, or like there's something about these stories that they recur.
You really only need one person to spread a story though, right? But yeah, it's either like it's like something that's kind of universal, like these archetypes, or everybody was around.
For me, the one that's always most interesting is anything that is mirrored in the Irish legends, partly because I'm Irish, but because even the Romans wouldn't go to Ireland.
Right, yeah.
Like it was cut off from all of Europe. There was no interweaving of trade or language or stuff, and yet you have the evil enchantress turning the sons into swans, and you're like, this sounds familiar. Haven't we heard this one before?
And that's a kind of random one to be universal, right? Like, oh yeah, that moment when you just get turned into a swan. I feel that.
It kind of like, with so many, like the Great Flood of the Bible. There's also a Great Flood in Greek mythology. There's a Great Flood in Egyptian mythology. And you're kind of like, probably at some point the Mediterranean did actually flood and wipe out an awful lot of the Mediterranean coastal countries, and that's why there's a kind of a racial memory of it. All this,
this flood mythology.
It makes sense, but I'm like, then and they have to explain. But I'm like, what's the racial memory of the boy turned into a swan, and why is that so popular?
Oh man, yeah, it raises questions. It raises questions for sure.
Yeah, and the other one that's kind of the classic is when Santorini's volcano went off and the world was covered in ash and like the sky blacked out, and there's different accounts of, when the gods got angry and hid the sun.
Yes, yeah.
But actually it can be traced back to a particular thing, which may also be the origin of the destruction of Atlantis, and so many different variations. But so anyway, first task, sort the grains.
Sort the grains.
The ants help.
Sorted.
Wake up the next morning and Aphrodite not so impressed. She's like,
Mhm.
damn, you did it. I can't give out to you, but I wish I could. So there was a second task. I can't actually remember what the second task is. Do you have it there?
Let me see.
Because obviously there were 3 tasks. There were always 3
Yeah,
tasks.
always three. Okay, she has to cross a river.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
And it was to get the wool of the golden fleece.
Yeah, basically
of the golden rams. So one, they're the rams of the sun god, which means they're probably like burning to the touch. They're not friendly.
Yeah.
Potentially they're the same ones that were turned up in the Odyssey, which caused him to be blown off course because they tried to steal the rams of the sun god of Helios. Also potentially the golden fleece. It's the right sort of area of the world for it. So yeah, Sarah says there, the fleece. Absolutely.
Yeah, Sarah, thank you for that. Yeah, so and she has to cross a river, which is problematic. It's a big river. This says so she is saved by instructions from a divinely inspired reed. That's not very clear. But again, outside help. She gathers the wool from the brambles.
And I'm not sure what the reed signifies because
it says it's a pipe meant to make musical instruments.
Oh, well, yeah, but I mean, Pan apparently found her when she was crying on the when she was crying on the things. Now, why he turned up, he had no part to play in the story.
Why does Pan ever do anything, right?
Unless, of course, the reeds were used to make the Pan pipe, and this is meant to be showing that it's Pan helping out again. Quite frankly, if Pan found a beautiful girl crying, I don't think he'd been leaving her on the side of the river by herself. Let's be.
I thought he seemed a little like uncharacteristically nice and helpful in this.
Yeah.
Story. Like really. But yeah, that's what he does. That's what he does.
Sure. Greek mythology, so fun.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
But the other side of that was then if you go back to divine help, that kind of we're helping but we're not helping.
Mm-hmm.
Hera, Juno, was a huge supporter of Jason of the Golden Fleece.
Yes.
Because he was the only hero of Greek mythology who wasn't her stepson. Like, I like you. You're not a proof of my husband playing around on me. Great.
You're all right.
So like she was always a big fan of Jason. And I think someone mentioned Percy Jackson earlier, and that's again there's a Jason in the Percy Jackson series, and again he's helped by Juno or Hera, depending on mythology. So she so potentially if it's the Golden Fleece again, that might be a Juno influence, but she has to go she grabs the wool off the barbed wire, and that way she never needs to go near the sheep. She comes back, oh yeah, you asked me to gather the wool, I gathered the wool. So Aphrodite, of course, now we go to the really hard task. Oh no, sorry, there is 4 tasks. So the next task was she just sent her to get the waters of the underworld.
Yes.
The river Styx and the river Cochise. I can't pronounce it properly, but Styx is the river of death, where like literally to just sit in it is to die. Cochise, I can't remember. Is that the river of? It's not the river of memory. It's because that's Letha. Anyway, it takes one of the things because there's 5 rivers of the underworld, and each wash away part of the soul, so that the soul can basically.
Lamentation, according to Wikipedia, or wailing. Yeah.
But they, again, magical intervention. Bring 2 coins, and bring some food for Cerberus, because Fluffy's gonna be hungry.
Yeah. Feed that dog for sure.
Yeah. And don't get distracted by the other people who are going to ask for your help. They'll just try and steal your stuff. Just ignore them. Go straight to Cerberus. But bring 2 coins. And this is important because it's an oft-used motif in Greek mythology where people bring a coin for the ferryman. And then they're like, okay, I'm finished now. I want to go back. Where's your coin? I paid you on the way over. Yeah, it's a one-way journey. Where's the payment for the way back? Sorry, you're stuck here. So having 2 coins was important. So she goes, she gathers the water. She brings it back, and Aphrodite is really annoyed now. So she says, right, well, having had to put up with you, like my beauty's fading, so go to Persephone and borrow some of her beauty for me, bring it back to me, because I need it, because I have to go up to the gods now and go to a conference. So poor thingy sent back down to the underworld. Actually, maybe this is where she had to get past Cerberus to get to Persephone. Anyway, at one point she has to, the bribe Cerberus was food. She gets into the hall of Hades and Persephone and says, guys, please help me out here. And Persephone's like, yeah, I feel for you. Okay, no problems. I've got a box here. Got a bit of my magic in it. It'll help Aphrodite sort you out as well. Like, don't look in the box. And again, this is different versions. One version is Aphrodite saying, it's mine, don't you dare look in it.
Mm-hmm.
Which she probably does in every version, but the other one is then Persephone also warns her, listen, that's for the gods only. Kind of like mortals shouldn't look on it. But of course, she does.
Yeah, it's a box. It's Greek mythology.
It's a woman. What do you expect?
Yeah, you open the box.
As Pandora said, my last unboxing video was not so successful.
Yeah.
So she gets she opens the box because she's hoping that she's going to get to see Cupid again. He's been in Aphrodite's house this whole time, apparently unaware that she's been nearby, but being tended to being restored from the wound she gave him.
The wound seems a little bit over dramatic. I'm like, I don't know that she hurt you that bad, but that's just my take.
Well, see, I don't see how you'd hurt a god at all. So if you can find something that does hurt a god, I'd say it's going to hurt them very badly.
Maybe.
So, and it was the sisters who gave her the knife, very reminiscent of the Little Mermaid, which could be, again, that they could have given her a candle made of, I don't know, dragon's flame or something, so that it's actually a more potent fire. Greek fire as a concept was pretty robust.
Watch out. All right. We'll
it was basically napalm. They just flung it at ships and they went.
Yeah.
Like,
what do you do? What do you do?
Probably not what they put into their lanterns at night, but you never know.
Okay, so I'll give Cupid that one.
Yeah. On the other hand, of course, instead of poking herself with one of his arrows, she could have stabbed him by mistake. Instead of taking a dagger, it would have been made far more sense if she had brought, like, oh, I've just found some of these arrows here in this house. These are good and sharp. And she ends up stabbing him with unrequited love or something.
And it really hurts, right?
that wasn't intentional. Sorry. Anyway, she's wounded him. He's recovering. But I mean, also, possibly the recovering is not so much from the burn of the oil, but from the burn in his heart of, she said she loved me, she said she trusted me. I asked her to do this one thing, and she couldn't. And she betrayed me, and now I've been called to account. She ruined our life together. So it could be more that's hurting him rather than literally a drop of oil.
Which is reminiscent of Beauty and the Beast, actually, where it's like, she left me, I'm literally going to die.
Yeah, and also reminiscent of Bluebeard and the don't use the key. Don't go looking in that room. Really? Yes. Think that's gonna work.
Yeah, very, very common there.
Yeah. So anyway, so she goes to she looks in the box.
Yeah.
But the box is actually sleep. Because a death-like sleep, because that is kind of what Persephone does.
Yeah.
Dead people, did you not spot that?
Yeah.
Now, presumably for an immortal, it wouldn't obviously knock them out in a sense, but it would just give them that kind of rosy glow of a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
Immortal. So she didn't get that. She got the other stuff, which was the
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Cupid has worked out that his mother has been basically abusing his wife. It's like, Mom, stop that. I love her. You're going to leave her alone. He runs off to find her, sees her falling into the trance, revives her with a kiss. He pulls the the sleep magic out of her, and because he's a god, it doesn't affect him. So she then revives out of her trance, and he immediately swooped her off to heaven and said, "Zeus, we need to have a chat. I love her, want to marry her. Tell my mom to back off."
Yeah, and then so we've got, it's funny too, because that's like a little bit Sleeping Beauty, right? Just the enchanted sleep and then waking up. And then yeah, Sarah is wondering, like, would it only happen to mortals? Was it meant for Aphrodite to fall asleep? That also could be a possibility. Persephone maybe trying to help her out, like, hey, we'll just put her to sleep. But again, goddesses picking fights with each other.
But I think the point is that because Aphrodite sent to her friend Persephone saying, "Give me some of your magic," unless there was an unmentioned feud going on at the time, probably Persephone wouldn't have messed around like that and knocked her out. So probably it was something that wouldn't have affected the gods in the same way. It just, not something mortals should be going near. There was also a thing that in some cases that they couldn't look. Another version of Cupid is the reason he said she wasn't allowed to look at him was because to see an immortal in their true form was such radiance and so dazzling, it would blind a human. And there are stories of people who looked on the true form of a god and then went blind, and their eyes literally burned out of their heads, and they were blind for the rest of their lives because they'd witnessed the glory, but kind of not really meant for your eyes, and kind of was more than you could take. And it kind of overwhelmed her. And I think it was one of Zeus's lovers, like, "Oh, honestly, I can take it. Show me who you really." It's like, "Okay, stupid. Here, look. Oh, I can't see anymore." Well, I did warn you.
That was a mistake.
So that was maybe partially also part of it. That's when there are things that immortals can get away with that mortals can't. So Cupid brings her to heaven and says, "Zeus," or to Olympus, "Zeus, like, we need to sort this out." And he's like, "Yeah, I have an idea. I like to play around. Sometimes the girls aren't so keen as I am. So I do this for you, and you are forever on my payroll, that you will make sure any girl I want falls for me. How's that?" And Cupid says, "Deal." Bros before hoes.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Awkward times.
Well, he got what he wanted out of it. So Psyche was then given the drink of the ambrosia and the nectar, which would make her immortal because she ate the food of the gods. Then Aphrodite comes along to complain. It's like, too late, she's an immortal. And we've given her our blessing. And it's like, take your pieces. Okay, well, you know what? It probably makes sense that my son, Love, should have like someone quite pretty as his wife. So kind of, we'll let that go.
It works out.
And they all lived happily ever after.
Yeah, the end. Yeah, so there's a lot going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for our purposes, parallels to Beauty and the Beast, especially.
See, I don't see it as a Beauty and the Beast type story, because Beauty and the Beast is all about overcoming, the prejudice of sight, of seeing someone ugly and learning to see their inner beauty. But I suppose Aphrodite can kind of maybe console herself with that. But this story is about the story of proving yourself worthy, that you have the husband, well, kind of like the Bluebeard curse. There's one thing you're not allowed to do. You do it anyway.
Yeah.
You lose out and suddenly you realize, oh, that was the moment of happiness. And then you have to go on a quest to prove yourself worthy to win back. So it's kind of like at the end where the beast is lying there saying, "Oh, I'm near death." And she's like, "No, beast, don't die. I love you." And if at that point, the fairy, Aphrodite, turns up because the only way you can save his life now is to do the following 3 impossible tasks, then it would be a Cupid and Psyche sort of story. But even still, that whole, accepting him despite his appearance doesn't come into Cupid and Psyche because she never sees him.
Yeah.
And when she does see him,
And
beautiful, and she's got no objections. So it's
yeah, to me, it's more the beginning of it. That idea of you're somehow, for some reason, more beautiful than the others around you. They don't like you because of it. You different motivations, right? Saving father, you're angered to goddess. You're
mhm.
sent off to marry something ugly with the idea that you're probably gonna die.
Oh, forgot a particularly important point. So after the sisters have sent
Oh
poor Psyche off to the Temple of Venus to be her slave forever, they said, huh, I'm going to have a better chance now because there's a poor pretty prince in
yeah,
need of me. When they find out that actually, oh, it turns out, sisters, you'll never believe it. It turns out I was married to the god of love and he loved me, but now he won't talk to me. And they're like, what?
yeah,
You're meant to be married to a dragon. So they each go up to the cliff, the rocks, and they throw themselves off to be carried to the palace. And the West Wind just looks and goes, nope.
yeah, nah.
They throw themselves to their death.
Yeah, and they fall and die. Yeah, and that is
Very Greek.
yeah, very Greek, very tragic, as you do. Reminiscent of them being turned to statues in the one version, a little bit more gruesome, a lot more gruesome.
Also, maybe reminiscent though of Cinderella. Mutilate themselves trying to win the prince who has no interest in them. Like there's a lot of the
there's this, which yeah, to be fair, they were like straight up trying to kill her, so makes sense narrative wise to have them have some kind of consequence.
Well, last week, yeah, but I mean, this week, all they were doing was kind of saying, you know, don't you get be all complacent and happy in your mysterious, beautiful palace with your invisible husband. You know, they just wanted her to be miserable.
They want her to be miserable, and then they try
I mean, that is pretty mean.
Already married, so like they're taking a few steps here.
There is that, yeah. Fair enough. But in fairness, everyone is allowed to upgrade for a god. I mean, Zeus does it all the time, so I mean, no woman can really be held to blame for that.
Like fair, but yeah, so they've like you could give them some credit at the very beginning if they like genuinely thought she was married to a dragon, although he's been like nothing but good to her.
Yeah.
So it still is a little suspect for them to be like,
oh no, they were being mean, but I don't think they were actually trying to kill her.
Yeah.
As the ones who turned into statues were.
Yeah, completely fair.
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting actually. I think more than the Beauty and the Beast, how many of the other fairy tales that you see elements of this tale being borrowed, you know, in Sleeping Beauty, in Cinderella, in like the stepsisters and the jealousy and the dynamic of that. It's all very interesting.
Interesting that we don't see more this idea of like the trope of like a prince falling in love with a commoner, or you know, a god falling in love with a mortal is pretty common. But then seeing like that mother figure being like, what? And
well, I mean, it kind of is the ultimate in the evil stepmother or the evil mother-in-law.
Evil mother-in-law. We don't do that
ogres.
So much. Yeah.
Pit of vipers. You know, we've been here.
I was gonna say we've done a whole talk on mothers, but it's interesting. That's another aspect that you can apply a little bit, right? That is.
Well, I mean, like, we're going to talk about jealous mother-in-laws. Here it takes a biscuit on that one.
Yeah. It's fair.
Yes. I would prepare a pit of vipers for you. I'll just send 2 of them directly to your cradle.
Yeah, we just straight into the point. The pit of vipers was a little overkill. For those of you who missed that, that's Perrault's Sleeping Beauty, the pit of vipers.
Yeah, because apparently Sleeping Beauty wakes up halfway through the story. There's a whole other part of the story that most people don't know about. And during that part of the story, the mother-in-law decides she wants to eat Sleeping Beauty.
Yes.
And the children.
Because the mother-in-law is an ogre, and they do that. But instead of just like, so she decides to kill them by throwing them into a pit of vipers. And then the prince rides home and sees like this giant pit of vipers in the courtyard and his mom about to throw his wife and children in. So it's a weird time. But yeah,
she ends up in there instead.
You
know what? No one's too sad about it. Even the prince, who's like, oh, she was my mom, but you know what? In light of all of
Yeah,
recent events.
it's probably okay. It's probably okay. Yeah, so that's the pit of vipers, if anyone missed that. All right, so let's see. Other parallels here. We don't have a rose.
No. I like actually more the comparison to East of the Sun, West of the Moon.
Yeah.
There's Bride. There's a lot of
kind of nicely. Those like really.
Yeah, I mean that's really the story of the search for the husband, where even to a certain extent the Snow Queen, it's a completely different face, but it's the idea of having to go on a search and complete the tasks in order to return yourself to the one you're searching for. Now, Snow Queen, of course, goes off so many other ways. So we'll just leave that one out. But no, I think that there's some real parallels there in terms of the search for the husband and doing the trials to restore them.
Your worth, yeah.
Actually, the trials, though, is not dissimilar to Rumpelstiltskin and having to spin the straw to gold or separate wheat from chaff or any of those other impossible and stupid tasks. Though, of course, in Rumpelstiltskin, it was more a punishment than a chance to prove your worthiness.
It's fair. Yeah, it's interesting, that idea of like the task is pretty common, and it's interesting to see some of the tasks lining up.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, in fairness, if you want, and she has to go through 3 tasks to prove her worth. It's like, oh, do I have to think of 3 tasks? Hey, let me just see what I can borrow. Someone's written about this already, or surely?
This already exists. I don't need to do this from scratch.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, to me, it's much more that sense. The story, for me, really is about her search for redemption.
Mm-hmm.
Psyche's search to prove herself worthy of her husband, as opposed to Beauty and the Beast, which is where she's striving to, I suppose, allow virtue overcome as its inclination. I think one version calls it, which is it's like not about just who looks prettier, but who is better inside.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of an inner
Beast and not Gaston.
Yeah, inner beauty versus outer beauty thing, right?
Yeah.
Character is not so much discussed in this myth.
No, this is just a case of
with Eros, like that's, and then in the end he just elevates her.
Yeah, but she has to prove herself before he can elevate her. Yeah. So I think that's much more the story of this one, is about her proving herself worthy for someone above her station. Mm-hmm. So again, it's like the peasant girl, the miller's daughter who falls for the prince. Well, how are you going to prove that the king should hand over his only son to, common stock? Why are you worth this? So yeah, I mean, I think that's to me more the theme of Eros and Psyche than the kind of seeing beauty in more than appearance.
Yeah, I think, thematically they're different, but then like if incident by incident, we have a lot of, especially at the beginning, the same things going on.
I'd actually say Hades and Persephone is closer to Beauty and the Beast in that it's kind of a forced, not captivity, but kind of closeness.
Yeah, she's being kept there. Yeah.
One is kidnapping and the other is a voluntary servitude. It's pretty bad either way.
It tracks. And he's
and a man who you're there because you're forced to be there, but not because who is doing his best to say, "Don't hate me, please don't hate me." And at the end of it, kind of, you know what? I don't really hate you. Like I was a bit scared of you at first. Scary beast, death.
Right.
Not so much anymore. You're nice, and then I'm rescued. Here's my family. I don't want to leave.
Yeah. It was all right there. It was all right.
Yeah. So, I think that there's, but again, then of course all the stories borrow from each other. So there's probably parts of Hades and Persephone that have gotten wound into Eros and Psyche and vice versa. And it's just, there's no defined cutting point between them in the oral tradition. I mean, you can have, this is the first print run of Perrault.
Right, yeah. Yeah, Laura, I was thinking this too the whole time. We were talking about Cupid. I was picturing the saucy boy from Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, with those oral tradition myths, and then we're coming at it, much later through multiple translations.
Yeah, but again, I think that the real thing is that in Perrault, you can say, well, that's the version Perrault wrote, because that's it. It's recorded. There's a date on it. It was printed. Whereas in an oral tradition, you don't know what was part of the original story, what got added in by someone else. There's no way to go back and compare what the original was, because there wasn't really an original. There was just stories by candlelight.
Mm-hmm. Even with the original Beauty and the Beast, we've had some trouble, right? And we do have a printed version of that. It's just in French. So yeah, that work can be tough. Yeah, and we've got updates on that, actually.
Yes. So I, after having read the abridged Gabby version, I downloaded the real Gabby version, the full length one. So I'll go through this, and it's like, don't really see a huge amount of difference, and suddenly it was very different. So what we discovered was that the Andrew Lang version from the Blue Book of Fairy Tales is the one that we read the first week. So what we thought was Gabby's version was actually Andy's version, because Gabby's version, while most of those details are kind of similar but with more detail, like, again, the story stops halfway.
Yeah.
All of those things we gave out about, of things that kind of didn't really make sense, like, why was he so obsessed about the roses? Who was the fairy and what was she doing there? Why the fireworks on arrival? There's another half book to explain all of it. It's amazing. So we think that just the attribution on the first one was given to de Villeneuve because Lang attributes it to her, but it's his very edited and abridged version of her story. He doesn't publish the full story. So actually what we looked at was Andrew Lang's chopped up and reinterpreted version of it. I still haven't finished it, but yeah, we're doing it next week because it is good. There's just so much more detail. It's kind of a whole bunch of postscripts. So like, all those plot holes? Let me explain why it's actually okay.
Yes.
It makes my heart glad.
I'm excited because there were some plot holes, right? We kind of ripped it apart for that. It's kind of funny that we were talking about Sleeping Beauty because it's a similar thing, right? We know like this little bit of the story, but actually there's much more to it.
And I'm pretty sure Sleeping Beauty features in the expanded Beauty and the Beast.
Oh yeah, I was going to mention this, Laura. Another comparison to Beauty and the Beast is that this is kind of a morality tale of being like, oh, it's okay, sweetheart.
Yeah, don't be scared of being raped.
Yeah, you're all right.
It turned out they're lovely people.
Maybe not. Yeah. It's similar. And because this is the Cupid and Psyche, what we've been looking at, is part of like a much larger work, actually. Yeah. Which seems to be about a donkey, actually, like a guy turned into a donkey. So I don't know where this pops into.
Yeah, who would have thought that a guy turned into a donkey would have anything to do with Beauty and the Beast? Spoilers.
Yeah, I'll be making a post about that once people have had a chance to read the book and it's not a spoiler anymore. For those of you who are like, what's going on? There's a donkey in my Beauty and the Beast, which I wrote in there before I actually read any of this. And then I was just like, oh, hey, I'm right on trend. So...
And I've seen a draft of it. I haven't seen all of it yet, so I'm like, yay! Things I noticed.
But yeah, we're going to pretend that I knew about the donkey in the original Cupid and Psyche, and this is me being like very strategic and clever.
And we're going to also label it as part of fairy tales we noticed while reading Princess of Roses. Because my God, there are loads of them.
Yeah, it's it's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so another way it's similar.
So next week we're going to go back to real Gabby version.
Yeah, full Gabby version.
So I think, guys, basically we can't avoid reading like the 150 pages of it because stuff happens. But pretty much you can skim through to where Beauty wakes the beast, because all of that has been summarized by Lang. A couple of details different. So if you don't have time to read the whole thing, jump to the halfway point, read from there.
Yeah, and we'll post the link. We're giving everyone a full week because, like, Erica found this. We were talking about it, I think, yesterday. Yep. And I was like, we should probably give more time.
Like, yeah, we could just about manage it ourselves, but no one else is going to have seen it. Yeah. So we wanted to give you a chance to take a look if you wanted to. Discover it yourself.
Yeah, when everyone has read along. So yeah, next week, full Gabby version. Our questions will apparently be answered, which is exciting. Yeah. We will actually know what's going on. We've tracked it down.
We hope. So what's next week? The 25th of October. Yes.
Yes.
Excellent.
All right. Sarah asks,
no, the one that's on sale on Amazon, well, technically yes, but that one is actually just a pop-up book with lots of maths and other fun stuff that they did as a comparison novel for when Disney brought out the 2017 Beauty and the Beast. And again, it's based on her one. I don't know which version they've based it on, because obviously Disney didn't do the full version of Beauty and the Beast. So I'd say it's more likely either Lang's cut down version, or it's probably Lang's version.
Yeah, I haven't, I bought the Kindle edition that was on sale, but I haven't read all the way through it yet. So
yeah. If there's a chapter called Visits from the Royalty of Fortunate Isle, that's the full version. If you don't have that, no, it's not.
Then yeah, you found another Kindle version though.
I did, and I will put the link for that into the group so that we can all fight. I was trying to find one. I think it's not too expensive.
I think it was just like $2 in the US store, and actually it was in Kindle Unlimited as well.
Oh, excellent! I can't get Kindles Unlimited.
So
I never know these things. Is this one available?
Yeah, but yeah, like for me being in the US, I was able to get it with Kindle Unlimited.
Oh, excellent, super.
So yeah, so that edition I think is our winner. And yeah, I'm not sure about the illustrated one. I'm really not. I would kind of be surprised though.
I liked the idea of that if you could actually get the hard copy and have all the fold out maps and stuff. Well, I just don't really see how they're going to do the fun of the fold out map in a Kindle edition. It just doesn't really seem to have the same interactive pleasure. It's like doing a flap book in Kindle. Like, how does that work?
Let's see. Yeah, we only have 9 chapters in that illustrated version, so I don't think.
Do they have any names in them?
Oh, hang on. Chapter 7 is called The Beast's Story.
Oh, that's the full version then.
Actually, yeah, okay. Cool. And then we have The Fairy Reveals All.
Yes.
And then we have A Happy Ending.
Yep, sounds good.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that illustrated version actually will get you, apparently.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I can't get it because the BookBub deal didn't cover Ireland.
Yeah,
so it comes up as $16 for Kindle. I'm like, nope, I'm not paying $16 for a Kindle edition of a book that I can't read.
But yeah, I think that'll get you the story. It might still be slightly shortened. I have no idea, but it'll get you there.
Yeah, as long as we get to the what happens after the kiss moments, there's some fun backstory bits that'll be good to know.
Backstory. Kind of a random structure to be like, oh, hey, and then.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand why they do it that way, but the amount they need to put in the postscript to explain the events leading up to it is massive. But if they'd explained it at the time, it would have completely changed the whole tone of the book. Anyway, we'll discuss that next week.
Okay, yeah, that's for next week. Anybody have any final thoughts about Cupid and Psyche or
I have one last thing.
Go ahead.
He stabs himself with his own arrow, and that's why he falls in love with her. Do not like that, because it means that it's just sort of he was going to make her love, a fool, and he falls in love with her then. But is it? Yes, he's love, so it is real love. But is it really real love if it's forced upon you?
Yeah, I think
I heard the versions where he just sees her and goes, You know what, Mom? I'm not going to go through with this.
Yeah.
I've got a better plan for her. I'll just tell you I did. And we're going to do something else.
I had this thought earlier and forgot to say it. That feels kind of Snow White-ish, right? Like, oh, you're more beautiful than me, huntsman, go kill her.
Yeah.
And then he's like, yeah, I did. No, I didn't.
Yeah, I totally did. Yeah, totally did. Put her in a cottage with 7 little men.
So that reminded me of Snow White a lot.
Mm. Yeah, so once you have an evil stepmother, everything starts falling into place.
It's fair. But yeah, the arrow stabbing felt a little strange. And Laura says, yeah, the two kinds of water. I think water of the underworld. Probably she's just trying to get her killed.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But because she's been pledged to her service, she can't actually kill her. So what she's doing is giving her impossible tasks that if she fails, then the goddess can smite her down. Or if she gets killed in her execution of her duties, oh well, that happens. Get me another handmaiden. But if she actually just says, I don't like you, well, she can't just go an outright killer because she's now pledged to her service. So there's a kind of a duty of care as a master servant thing. So she's
yeah.
But the waters are the waters of the underworld, and each river in the underworld had powers basically to strip away personality. So the waters of lamentation are those waters. I don't remember that.
To sleep.
Yeah, it's I can't recall that bit, but it's the different waters in the underworld all have their own special properties of, making life miserable, basically. Well, no, I mean, the idea was to have their.
That's fair.
But it's also a soul factory. So they bring in your body, they strip out all the, take off the casing of the phone, remove the SIM card. It's mythological production lines. So they wash away the life, they wash away the feelings, they wash away the memories of the life that's been, and then you have the people who didn't go through the river Lethe for long enough, and they keep memories of their previous life, and that's where reincarnation comes from. The idea that, well, the reincarnation is happening, but the memory of reincarnation is for people who didn't spend enough time in the river of forgetfulness being washed away. And then I have no memory of who I was or anything of my previous life, and I can queue up and be sent back out for duty again.
I'm still laughing about the phone refurbishing analogy. Oh no.
Yeah.
I never know where we're gonna end up, right? Truly no idea. Never know.
All right. So next week we will be gathering again to discuss actual Gabby's version.
Actual Gabby.
Between now and then, we've got a couple of interviews lined up, author interviews coming, and another Monday Mean tomorrow. I can't actually remember what the schedule looks like. I can't remember who's coming up this week, but a couple of good people to talk to.
I truly have no idea, but people are coming up. So
we have plans. We don't know what they are, but we do have them.
We've forgotten them, but the plans are already executed, the poster scheduled. So it's happening, whether I know it or not. Thank you guys so much for joining us for this discussion of mythology. Release on the 23rd. No, that's been delayed. So for Erica, yes,
I'll be releasing the Wednesday after next week. So but we'll chat next week, and then it's the week after that I'm releasing. But
yes, it's the
23rd. Unfortunately, we don't have a release between now and next weekend because
so 23rd. Sorry guys, it's just such a complicated book.
No, to be honest, it is worth taking the time on it because it's what I've read so far is amazing. But have to wait a little longer.
It's just it ended up long. It ended up complicated. it needed a little more time. But yeah, Erica's book comes out on the 28th. We will celebrate. Mine will be out like in time for Thanksgiving, so Thanksgiving break read.
Sorry, you're right though. On the 23rd is your author interview that we're doing live.
Right.
Oh yeah,
Correct. That thing.
yes. So I shall be interviewing Angela on her views on Beauty and the Beast and inspiration thereof.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for hanging out. This is always so much fun.
It's lovely to talk to you all.
Next week. Super excited. Bye.
Night, guys. Sleep well. For us on this side of the pond, have a lovely evening for the rest of you.
Or enjoy your dinner. Either one.